You don't feel like it right now, but you are enough. And that if you keep putting yourself out there, if you keep failing, trying to do what you want to be doing, you'll find that you'll have some peace in your life, that you're actually doing something that's of value to the world.
I am here today with Mark Gantt, who is best known for co-creating, writing, producing, and starring in the groundbreaking Crackle series, Streamy award-winning, called The Bannen Way. For anybody that's listened to this podcast, they might be like, The Bannen Way, that sounds somewhat familiar. I'm pretty sure that's where I got my big break too. So for anybody wondering how I found this guy, it's because you and I have known each other for a long time, and we came up in very similar areas where we were just kind of sort of trying to break in and get noticed, and we knew that we could do it, but nobody was giving us a shot. And then we put everything that we had into the Bannen Way, and we were in the trenches together for months and months, and then just started to happen, right? Just got kind of crazy. But beyond you being the actor, writer, producer extraordinaire, you've also been a painter and a graphic designer, and you're a podcaster, and you're a coach, and there's 1.5 million other things that I could add to that list, but we only have like 60 to 90 minutes, and I probably wouldn't get through all of them. So my first question for you, and it's really just more research for me because I have the same problem. When you talk to somebody in real life and they say, "What do you do for a living?" How the hell do you answer that question?
Wow. I mean, I guess it depends on the day. I mean, it's so funny because for the longest time, I struggled with being a multi-hyphenate by having these different hats that I would wear. And, I would say that, so many people have told me along the way, pick one. Just pick one, dude. It's way easier just to pick one, focus. That way nobody has to, figure out what it is you do. And I can tell you there's times in my life where I've just like, okay, I'm going to focus just on the acting. Oh, I'm just going to focus just on the writing. I'm just going to focus just on the directing. I'm going to focus just on producing. And, each time I've done that, it's stifling. It doesn't feel like that's the right thing to be doing. Now, So when people ask me, what do I do at the moment, sort of as my career is sort of morphing and stuff, I definitely feel like I'm a writer director who also produces, who also has a podcast, who also coaches. And, and that's where I'm at right now. But I gotta say, that's like one of the biggest things when I talk to people who are actors and want to write and direct, or who are like directors, but haven't written anything before. Like, there are all these different things I want to be doing. How do I, do I have to pick one? And I say no, because, who knows what you're supposed to be doing or how you're supposed to be doing, or how each one of those can influence something. And I can easily say now that, over the course of my, my career and my life, all the stuff that I've, failed at and, succeeded or perceived failed at, all those things have informed the choices that I'm making today creatively, and so, all those things together, make me who I am. So I don't know, it's just exactly what do I say? I don't even, it's like, what am I doing today?
Yeah, we creatives, we're a frustrating bunch to do.
Yeah, right.
Because
right,
I'm the same way, and I've been told the same thing by people like, can't just be an editor. Like, why do you need the podcast and this or that? Or just you got to pick a lane. And I just don't believe that. Like, if in your heart of hearts that you want to do all of these different things, then great, do all of them. But I do think that one of the things that's helpful that I've taught to a lot of my students, that I've also had to learn myself, you don't have to pick one, but you probably should pick one next for at least a little while. Well, what's next? Well, Next could be for the afternoon. It could be for the next week. It could be for the next 3 to 6 months. It really depends on the goals that you set. I do think that it's helpful to pick 1 or 2 lanes at the most at a time. And I know that for you, there were times when it's all in on the acting, then it's all in on the directing, or it's all in on the podcast. But I do believe that you're really, really stifling yourself creatively if you force yourself to do what you said, which is a scary word, the easy way, is to just pick one, because it might be the easiest, but can you imagine if you had all the success in the world as just an actor because you picked that one lane, but you couldn't do all of the other amazing things that have had the impact that you've done?
No way. But I agree. It's you can't just, there has to be a focus. And, I know you don't know anything about focus.
No, I never. I'm a what squirrel?
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
We're here today with Mark Gantt. Oh, wait, sorry. I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I think there is an importance to, having some sort of set plan, even if it's like 6 months to a year, that I'm focusing on these tasks, these goals, so that I can achieve some sort of self-confidence in whatever it is that I'm doing. I know you talk a lot about that stuff too, with, like even, assistant editing to editor, how, what are those skills that you need to have? Like, are you doing that? Are you doing all those different things to build your skill set, your resume, and, do that stuff. So it's not as easy as saying, oh yeah, do it all. Because, doing it all, there's a chance that you're not going to have that success at any of those things. And I'm sure that you and I, maybe there's somebody that, knows us really well, and they could say, yeah, I know you want to do it all, Mark, but really focus, like, I know you, and there may be just a little bit of that. And I definitely think for myself right now, I definitely see that, the acting thing was something that was so great for me to do, and I enjoyed doing it, but it really sort of informed a lot of the other things that I'm doing now. So it makes me a better director, makes me a better writer, better coach, it allows me to understand sort of both sides of the camera, both sides of a listener, both sides of a viewer, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I would say the same thing too, when it comes to this idea of doing it all. My response is always, I know I can't do it all now, but I'm going to eventually. Just give me time, right?
Right.
And I know that when I don't, I guarantee I'm not going to do it all eventually. What I don't want to do is look back and say, yeah, but I didn't do certain things out of fear because I was afraid, right? And I refuse to let that happen. American Ninja Warrior is the perfect example. I just knew. I'm like, so many people have said, oh, you got to try that. And there was this big pit in my stomach, like, but that's scary. And it's so out of my comfort zone. Right. But the scarier thing was I'm 90 years old and I'm thinking, why didn't I at least try? And I have failed spectacularly so far, but I've tried, and there's no fear and there's no regret, right? So that's why when I say I know that I won't get it all done eventually, but I will shoot for that as the goal, I'm never going to look back and say, well, I wanted to try the coaching thing, or I wanted to try the Ninja Warrior thing, or I wanted to develop my own shows, but I was a pretty successful editor, and I guess I'm going to have to be okay with that. Like, that.
No, I can't do it,
So the one thing I will go even deeper into that I think is really important for people to understand, if somebody said to me at a party, if I were to answer the same question that you did, if I were going to be really honest and they said, what do you do? I would say, I inspire people to step outside their comfort zones to reach their greatest potential. And they would look at me and they'd be like, I'm sorry, what? No, what do you do for a living? Right. But that's the deeper why. Underneath, whether it's editing or coaching or podcasting or Ninja Warrior, what's yours? Because you do the graphic design and the posters and the directing and the hoivin and the flavin. You do it all, but there's one reason why you're doing it all. And I'm really curious as to what drives you.
Well, it's interesting. It's not dissimilar to you. I enjoy inspiring others. Part of my journey is, I just celebrated 33 years of sobriety. And it is something, mental health and recovery is something that's been a big part of my life. And, from being a teacher to, just being on set, I feel like my responsibility, like I say, as a director, is to inspire everybody to be their best. I'm only as good as everybody else is around me, if it's my project or not my project. If I'm showing up to do a job, I'm only as good as the next person. And so to inspire people and, and part of that, to inspire people to live their dreams, and so for, as I'm meeting people, as I'm creating projects, it's how do I entertain? How do I inspire? How do I, motivate people to see that they're not limited just by their circumstances, by their thinking, by their outside circumstances. And so, that's sort of my thing.
What I think is hilarious, I probably should have brought this up earlier, but I just remember now listening to this. People need to understand how you and I met. Do you remember how we met? You probably
Yeah.
don't even remember, do you?
Craigslist.
We met on Craigslist. Yeah, we did. I was desperately unemployed and out of work, and I would do anything just to make $100 off Craigslist. I didn't care. And there you were as well with your directing and writing partner, Jesse. Had a credit card, and you shot a few minutes of this pilot, and you're like, we need somebody to help us get this thing off the ground. So this is going to lead to where I want to go next. But the fact that you and I have so much in common, and we met on Craigslist of all places, there's something about how the universe happens. And you're already smiling because you know where I'm going, because we've had this conversation 100 times. But there's this thing that my students in my program call the woo-woo factor. And you and I have had at least 15 to 20 conversations about this thing called the secret.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk a little bit more about this thing that we cannot explain or understand. But the fact that you and I found each other on Craigslist, we have all these things in common. We have such aligned, deeper whys. And then the other weird tangent to all of this is that randomly, like 2-3 years ago, we show up at the same jetway at an airport. Just randomly. How does that, you think about the sheer math of that happening, and we just found each other at the perfect time and reconnected. Let's just go into some of these private conversations we've had about this thing called the secret and the woo factor.
Yeah, man. Well, it's so, I can't, I definitely can't put into, I have no explanation for it. I mean, there's no real, way to be able to say, oh yeah. I mean, and I guess this is like the sort of the bigger thing, as as you were talking about that. It's like, it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, set some goals, take this action, and then, follow your bliss, go for the thing, because, there is this other part, there's this thing that, that I believe that we're all connected, you know what I mean? That there's a connection that we all have. And so, if we continue to put ourselves in, in the sort of on the field, in the arena, if you're constantly putting yourself in there, I mean, you and Tony, I mean, it's like all those things, how do you find yourself in these, in these situations? There has to be something that we're listening to, some inner guidance that's saying, do this, and I think that's one of the things. I'm sort of going off a tangent here, but this is where I am today, is that for so long, I'm a hustler. That's what I do. I hustle, and what does that hustle look like? If I break it down, it's networking, I'm sort of as Gladwell said, I'm a connector, I connect people. I love doing that. I love being able to do that. And so, but also that's helped me get work. It's got me, opportunities out of the blue. And, you're, and our stories are so similar. Yours with, Burn Notice. By the way, was just on a Zoom with Alfredo. He's going to be doing a movie, and
oh my God, that's amazing.
We're talking.
What a small world.
Yeah, and he was literally just going all right, so how can you walk me through your prep for a movie? And I'm like, wait, you're like a showrunner. You're you directed already. You've already he's like, yeah, but not a movie. You're done a movie. And it's that's what's so amazing, is to be able to give back to him, to be able to share my experience with somebody who could be on paper somebody that's he's up here and I'm down here, but instead it's just no, man, we're just two artists, on the journey together, staying connected over 10 years, and so to the point where he was, co-showrunner on Brienne's show on 6, it's all those little, these little pieces, you just go, no accident. So, so what I was going to say is just real quick to say that right now I'm in that place where there's a lot of those actions I was taking that were potentially out of fear, potentially out of I'm going to, I need to hurry. I'm going to miss my opportunity. and a lot of those actions, they feel like the examples you share about an email, that's like, hey man, love your work or whatever, you know what I mean? And like, and misspell their names and the whole, you know what I mean? It's like out of this aura, constantly over communicating, oversharing with somebody that I'm not that connected with, because I so eagerly want that to happen, And so today it's much more guided. I just, I sort of, if it feels like there's anxiety about it, not in a, this is uncomfortable to put myself out there, but an anxiety of like, I need this, like, this is perfect. When I think this is perfect because this, and this, that to me is like danger, Will Robin, danger, because like, that's always like me trying to control and manipulate a situation. And what happens then is like, I can feel out of place. I'm willing to, sort of stretch the truth and put myself in circumstances that don't make me feel so good. So today I'm really much more in a place of, putting myself out there in a very authentic way. And if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to tell that person, but these are the things I can do. And this is how I can, do this job, but I'm not going to lie and say I've done this thing, kind of thing.
Right. And one thing to give you a little bit of glimpse into my process, by the time this is published, this may not be the case, but I always think about what's the title of this episode going to be? I'm trying to put a title before I even have the conversation, so I have a direction. And I'm pretty confident that somewhere in the title of this episode is going to be Making Happen. Because if there ever was anything that encapsulates why I wanted to talk to you and who you are, it's about this idea that you make happen, which to many people sounds like the opposite of this idea of The Secret, which is why I brought it up. I've had this conversation countless times with my students where they'll say one of two things. Oh, this whole woo-woo thing and the universe just being there and it all being connected is all a bunch of crap. You just gotta put your nose to the grindstone and do the work. And then you've got the other camp, which is, no, you put your thoughts and ideas into the universe and the universe will hear you and you create your vision board and it will happen. And I say, you're both right and you're both wrong. You gotta have both. Yeah. You gotta have a vision board, whether it's a real thing or it's in your head. You gotta have these goals and you gotta make the effort to make it happen, right? It's the sweet spot of finding both of them, and you're the perfect example of how to make happen. And when I go a little bit deeper into this idea that you said earlier, I think if there ever was a takeaway or a theme for this, is this idea of these fears and these limiting beliefs. And I want you to take me back to when you used to wait for permission to do things, because you're not doing that anymore. But for a long time, you were like everybody else. I have to wait until somebody tells me I'm an actor, or wait until somebody says you're ready to direct. So talk to me about that time when you were dealing with those fears and waiting for permission.
Okay, so I will, and I also wanted to say, and I've talked about this a lot. My wife and I talk about this a lot. Is like, for me, I still wake up every morning, and the voices are like, first of all, they've changed. They got smarter, and they're not the normal. You're a piece of. You're not going to get what you want. Blah blah blah. They're just they're like, oh, you could have. Why didn't you? Oh, let's go on Instagram and look at that person's career and see what they're doing, and just like do this. So it's like there's always that opportunity for me to embrace that negative thinking, but it's now I can get aside and clear my head and move forward. But there were times where that's all I thought about. And so I can specifically say that when I started acting, and I was in an acting class, and the teacher was Monk Casellas at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, and I was doing really good, and I was having some great success, and hear little parts here and there, and but I was watching him direct, and I was like stage managing and assisting him, and I found myself just like watching as a director. It was like, oh my God, like I'm watching Giovanni Ribisi act, but like Giovanni Ribisi is like, I can't like learn from him as an actor. It's like, he's just genius, and then but I can watch how he's directing him and things like that. So I came to him and said, I don't want to act anymore. I think I just want to direct. I said, I enjoy directing scenes and stuff. And he said, well, he wrote down something, and he's like, hands me this, puts up this notepad. It says actor. There's a line down the middle, and then director. He said, you can only pick one. You can't do anything else. What do you pick? I said, director, hands down. He said, all right. He's like, I think you can do both. But if you pick directing and not the acting, and don't confront the stuff you're not confronting in your acting, it'll come up in your directing. So I want you to do, look at these scenes, do this work for me, and, let's go from there. The next week, he pulled together this like small group of actors from the school that were in the advanced class, master class, but hadn't like got to the place in their careers they wanted. And he wanted to know, like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you getting the teaching? Why aren't you getting to the next level? And so we were all sitting there, and he said, Mark, what's your deal? Why aren't you where you want to be? And I was just looking at him like I didn't know. And he said, he's like, so, why is your acting career not where you want it to be? And I was like, and I broke into tears. I said, because I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm a good enough actor. Cut to, 18 months later, 27 scenes later, I'm sitting on stage and I'm looking at the class and I'm like, I'm an actor. And I had done 27 scenes. I had put the work in. I had failed. I had got up, failed, found that truth, found that purpose, found that inside thing. And soon after that was just within a month after that, I was in a class, same class, different teacher, Barton. He was talking to my scene partner about her sister who's famous and she doesn't have the career she wanted. And he said, you just got to build your own door to walk through it. He was talking to her, but I heard it. And I was like, yeah, I've done like all this production work. I've directed shorts. I know how to make a movie. Why am I waiting? I've got my foot in the door, like this little crack of the door as an actor, the back door is open. And my friends are going, Mark, come on in, dude, come on in. Yeah, just make something. And then that's how, I wrote that night on the wall. I said, today on my whiteboard, I said, today I stopped fighting. And that's when I wrote down 3 directors' names that were writer-directors. Jesse Warren was the first person. And I was like, these are 3 guys that want to work with me. They talked to me about working with me, and let me see if I can create something with them, create a vehicle for myself. And that was that process. And, that whole situation definitely took me into a place of going through fear, all those different things, but seeing at the end of it to see like, oh, wow, like this is possible. There's obviously more to that story of us together, finally getting to you and I, but that was a big part of it. It's like putting in the work, willing to fail, and that was part of it. It's just like, I really wanted to quit. Like I was willing to just switch to directing because I just thought that was just going to be the easier thing to go to. And for me to be able to show up and hard scenes and fail and have him go, don't believe you. I don't believe you. What's going on? And to get to the point where he's basically said nothing. He just turned to the class and said, anybody have anything to say? And I was like, wow. So
what that really comes back to is something that I think every single creative person suffers from their entire career, no matter where they are, is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And this is something that I have suffered from myself for my entire life, and all of the students that I talk to, they suffer from the same thing. And I have been doing a deep dive to figure out what is the solution to imposter syndrome. How do you overcome it, right? And I'm not a doctor, not an academic, and I've actually spoken to academics and talked to them about this exact subject because that's how I learn. But really, what I've come to understand is exactly what you talked about. You identify the imposter syndrome. You know that the fear is there, but you just start chipping away at it one swing at a time, over and over and over. You do your scene. All right, it sucked, but it was a little bit less than it was the time before. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. And then one day you stand on the stage, you're like, I'm an actor, right? But it takes a long time to get there. And you have to both confront the fear, but also you have to be willing to embrace failure as part of the process. And I think that's where so many people get stuck, is they say, well, I'm not made for this, or I'm not good enough, so why should I try? As opposed to, that's exactly why you should try and try more and try harder, because eventually you're going to work through it. And like people are thinking, oh yeah, well maybe that's how you felt 20 years ago, but now you're on Cobra Kai and this and that. Let me just tell you a little story. Right? I haven't even told this story yet, but you're bringing it out of me because you're being super honest. I'm going to be super honest. So I did not do well on my first season on American Ninja Warrior. I did not do well at all. And I've been spending months trying to dig in and figure out what is it that happened. Well, was it my placement of the hand on the rope where I should have jumped off the left foot or the right foot? I know that it's none of those things.
Mm.
The reason that I failed and didn't reach the potential that I know that I have for this sport is because I was on that set thinking to myself, I don't belong here. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know how I got here. This is a cool experience. I don't belong. And they're going to figure out that I'm a fraud. This was not 20 years ago. This was like 3 months ago. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out, how do I show up on that set again and say to myself, I belong here. This is for me, right? I'm doing all the exercises and the push-ups and the pull-ups and the laches and everything, but it's still, how do you get to that switch where you stand on the stage and say, I'm an actor, and I can say, I'm a ninja and I belong here, on that journey as we speak?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, and I think that's where, when as we first started talking about it, there is this thing that I can't explain. I can't package this up and say, this is how you figure out you can get over this imposter syndrome by just doing this. Like I really do believe there has to be this willingness to trust the process and to fail. I mean, it's funny. It's like I go from, I was recutting my new director's reel, and this producer was helping me because she felt she was really, she believed in me and she wanted to help me. And she's like, we have all these single things that you've done, but I want to get your feature stuff in something with all these other pieces. She's like, I've got the editor, this is the guy. And so we get on the Zoom with him and we're talking, and she's like, so this is Mark. Mark is this guy. And then she just goes on, launches into the most amazing guy she has ever wanted to work with, as she's ever worked with. Like every quality that I didn't even know that I had, like the way she described to me, like how I want to be feeling about myself. And I got on the phone with her and we called, and I just said, that blew me away. What you said, how you described me. She goes, it's all true. She's like, that's what I see. That's what you show up with. That's how you show up to set. So whether or not that that, and I definitely would say the last 3 or 4 times showing up as a director, there was something that happened. And I'll say this, to you. I mean, this is not your thing necessarily, but what has helped me is it's not about me. Like, I'm being of service. And so, for you being on American Ninja, you're being of service. You're being of service to the audience, to your people, to your family, to yourself, of like, just, we're a part of this whole thing. And you weren't supposed to do what you weren't supposed to get there this first time. That's exactly your journey. Everything happens for a reason. So like you couldn't have got there. You can't find that thing until you've gone there. Now you're going to get to that next thing. It's like, oh, right, I've already done it. Now I can get it. Oh, there was actually this one little thing, whatever it is, you know what I mean? That I sort of, who knows? Maybe it's something that you didn't take care of in your life that you needed to handle, some resentment, some BS that, something with somebody that you needed to, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing. It could be just one little. It's the sliver in the giant's thumb or something. It's just like, we don't know until we are willing to look, until we're willing to like do it, and then look at it and go, okay, wait, something's not working. Something's got to change. And I as you're looking at it, it's not outside. It's not the competition. It's not the way they rigged that thing. It's not your trainer. It's not the way that it's like, it's something inside of us. And, the only way we can get through it is through it. There's no easy way around that.
Yeah, and the way that I will always reframe failure, and it's really hard in the moment, because man, when I told the story to my brother, he had been watching the videos on social media and heard about, like, he knew 3.5 years ago when I declared this goal, and they hadn't heard what happened, and I explained to them what happened, and he just laughed. He's like, "Oh my God, all that training and all that time and money for nothing?" I'm like, no, it was exactly the opposite. That was one viewpoint. I'm like, that's fine. But the assumption was, well, you did that, you failed, so now you move on. And my response is very different. And what's interesting, and this is one of the things I talk about in another podcast with one of the world's foremost experts and researchers on limiting belief and the chatter in our head and the voices that we hear, what's my episode with Ethan Cross, and we can put a link in the show notes. But it's this idea, first of all, that you can hear somebody else talk about you, and you're like, that's amazing, but you can never talk about yourself that way. But if I were to ask you the question, and I've done this to students, and it's amazing what happens. If I said, I want you to explain all of your best virtues. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty good director and designer, but I've got so much to learn. But if I said, describe to me Mark Gantt in third person, you'd sound a lot more like that other person, right?
Right.
And I did Ninja with a really good friend of mine who I met through the whole Ninja journey. And he also failed very, very early. And he was like supposed to be going to like Vegas finals. Like he's done it 4 or 5 years. Like he's legit, right? And to me, I was like, oh my God, like I just failed. This is so embarrassing. But then when it happened to him, immediately I was in coach mode. And he's like, oh, how can I do this anymore? Like I've let my family down and I quit. I'm done. I'm like, dude, you've got 2 choices right now. Either you've worked this hard to get here and the end of the story is you failed on this obstacle and you suck. Or this is just going to be a really, really good part of a much better story when you succeed. Choosing to move forwards or not is a choice. What happened here, it is what it is. You can choose to react however you want. But the choice is it failure or was this just feedback and I keep moving? And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should listen to my own advice because I'm feeling pretty about myself. And I'm like, right. Yeah, but the story's going to be so much better when I can talk about this big giant failure once the success happens. And I realize that's kind of the pattern I go through over and over and over, right? And I know that you're very, very similar, where it's not like, well, oh shucks, I tried that and I guess I suck. It's like, nope, I'm just going to keep going forwards and make the story better.
But I love the failure or feedback. I love that. I haven't heard that before, and I definitely see. For me, my experience has been, the biggest breakthroughs I've had are, at the end of a breakdown, and that goes with, relationships to my career, to everything. And I think that's like, you just can't get to the breakdown. Like you can't sort of break down all those limiting stuff by being safe. It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? You can sort of just be, because I've always, and I've been saying this, and this is like the bigger shift for me that happened in 2019. Might as well get into it real quick. We're in it.
Let's do it.
So 2018, I have my son's born in April. I'd worked a teeny bit, the end of 2017, April comes, we're just going to take off, 3 or 4 months. And then, everybody says, you have a baby, like all the work comes in. And so, by whatever, middle of August of 2018, there's like not a ton of work, it's like, where's this loaf of bread? Where's all this money? And my wife booked the job, Brianna booked this job in St. Croix, like soon out, like 4 months after we went there and did this movie. We're like, oh, okay, so it's all flow. Here's the flow. But then it just slowed down for me. Like nothing was happening. And there's a couple little jobs here and there. And, it was sort of the, earning jobs, but not in like my vision, and like art directing and props and stuff, but not like the directing, writing and acting and stuff. So now let's fast forward to like June 2019. And I'm like May, June, July, my balance is down to like $2.32. June, $23.16. And I'm not debting. I haven't had to borrow money, but it's just like, it's literally like everything is like right there. And I'm doing so much stuff. I'm hustling. I'm doing the hustle. I'm doing this thing. And it sort of hit me. One of the things was, I was much more willing to do the work that was just not scary. I was much more willing to like hustle for the work that was like the prop work, the art directing work and all that kind of stuff. It was much scarier for me to go, let me go ask somebody to hire me as a writer. Let me go ask somebody to hire me as a director. Even though I was doing some of that outreach, it was more like the low hum of discomfort. That's more uncomfortable. It was more comfortable for me to do shit I didn't want to do than to put myself out there and do the stuff that I really wanted to do. And so that just hit in August of 2019. I was like, okay, I guess I got to get like a real job. Like if I'm not, cause nothing's happening. And so what does that real job look like? All I've done is production for 25 years. I don't know what skills do I have that's got some regular job. And so I started to go, well, there's that, or there's like, get a job, like get a gig writing, get a gig directing, get a gig producing something.
I can see you at Men's Warehouse. Like you're a good looking guy. You look good in a suit. Like that could be a decent job for you.
Now you tell me, where were you then?
Show your pictures from the Bannen Way. They'd hire you at Men's Warehouse in a second.
Man, that is me and Ski Car, him and I together. We go in there, co-managers. We got this. Ski Car was the guy in Bannen Way. But anyway, so what ended up happening is I was reaching out to people that could hire me, in that capacity while I was still doing this other stuff. And I ended up getting this meeting with these guys that were a production company. And they, it was my friend Jim Clementi, who was like a former FBI agent who worked on Criminal Minds. And, we were, try to work on projects together. And, I called him. I said, hey, man, I'm willing to do like whatever it takes. Do you need a writer? Do you need a director? Do you need a producer? Do you need an associate producer? Like, I want to get in, I want to be doing something much bigger to provide for my family than to just do this other stuff. He said, come in the office. Let's talk to the CEO, see what they can do. So I have this meeting, end up talking about him for 75 minutes, talk about me for 10. We get ready to leave. He's like, this is the best meeting. Like, this is fantastic. And it was great. We were talking about, I was asking him, I was asking about himself. I was asking about his wife had just been killed. And we were talking about this horrible situation and what he was going through. And, a week later I followed up. He said, hey, send us some writing samples. Sorry, man. Yeah, send us some writing samples. So I sent some writing samples. A week later, follow up. They're like, yeah, we love your scripts. Come in here. So I come in. They're like, hey, so we don't really have anything, but maybe. Have you done like an Audible project before? We're working on some sort of like docu-series. We need like a showrunner, like a writer producer to do that. Would you be willing to do something like that? And I was like, my voice in my head was like, what? I'm a visual person. I'm a director. I can't. Yes. I said, yes. And then great. Well, let's talk next week. And then next thing I know, I'm negotiating this deal to like, write and executive produce this, Audible original series, and I had no idea what I was doing, but it was definitely in the realm of like what my skills were. Once it started, I was like, oh yeah, this is why I'm on this. I know how to connect people. I know what a story is. I know how to break down a story. I know how to like interview people. I know how to pull something out of somebody. I know how to, write. And that was like this huge shift of like, oh, for 12 weeks, for 10 of the 12 weeks, I was uncomfortable every day. I actually you and I were talking at that time because I bought the program. I was listening to your program, the lessons on the way there, on the way in the car. I was trying to get my time in place, scheduling, had my calendar, like my calendar was like blown up because I wasn't know what I was doing. But like my first week was like, 27 tasks. It was like I had to put everything in there, meditation, the thing, my meeting, the thing. But for me, the uncomfortable in that was like, it was excruciating. And on the 11th week, it was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Oh, I can do this, and there was no outside validation for the 10 weeks. No one saying, yeah, you're doing it right. It was just like, I was like, felt like I was drowning. And the 12th week, I was like, oh, wow, I could do this again. And they came in, hey, do you want to do this again? We'd love to do it again with you. And I was just like, really? Cause like, that's how I'm thinking the last 2 weeks, but the first 10, but that was so much more uncomfortable than living a life doing something I don't want to do, which I felt at the time, like I don't want to do props. I don't want to do art directing. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be doing this. Yet I was so used to it. Like I was so used to just like not getting what I want that it was just like, okay, I'll just do that compared to putting myself out there in the big thing, and then, getting it. And then like, now I got to like move forward. Now, how do I do that? And, really own that. So.
Yeah. And there's a very, very dangerous word that I teach all of my students they have to eradicate from their vocabulary, except for the most opportune times. Do you know what that word is?
No.
Yes. The problem was you were saying yes to all the things that were easy because no was a lot scarier, right?
Yes.
And no can be the most powerful word to direct you towards what you want. Everybody thinks focus is all about here are all the things that I should be doing. Ultimate focus is about knowing what you shouldn't be doing. And that comes from deep inside where you're thinking, you know what, art directing is great, or making these posters or doing prop work. Like, I lose track of all the things you've done. So whatever, there's just a whole laundry list. But you've decided, I don't want to do these things anymore. But you weren't telling the universe that. Right. And you weren't telling all the people hiring you that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, I got $23 in the bank account, so I better say yes to this art director thing.
Right.
But if you can just live through that discomfort long enough to say no to those things, I firmly believe, again, it comes back to this woo-woo factor that we can't explain, whether it's religion or faith or universe, I don't know. But as soon as you say no to something, a whole bunch of new doors in your life open up. But God, is it scary as...
Well, I think absolutely. I think that and that's what I was doing. I was saying no to that work and saying yes to this. And I would say that I say this a lot of times to people too, when it comes to agents, managers, you know, when actors or writers, directors, they're like, oh, my manager, you know, they're good, they're nice, they're this or whatever. Then I can talk to people that are like, you know, my girlfriend, my wife, my husband, my, you know, boyfriend, whatever. There's always, you know, it's like, we have to make it, we are the only ones, you know, like in charge of our lives like that. And so there's a space, there's like, you know, in our universe, like a space for all of these, you know, things that these people are taking or jobs are taking. And the minute that we remove that, like, let's say a manager, and go, okay, that means I'm not going to have anybody fighting for me and trying to make calls for me, but it's not working. You know, I'm willing to like let that person go. And that then all of a sudden there's that space, the universe goes, oh, you want something different than that. Because otherwise it's just going to keep giving us what we want, what we keep going after. There's no flow. And that goes, I think, for money as well. Like, you know, if I'm like this with my mind, like holding tight, like I got to, you know, it's like the universe is like, all right, cool. Well, that's all you want. All right. That's what you get. That's okay, cool. There's no more room in there for you because I can't give you any more. But if it's just a flow, if it's just like, hey man, cool. Oh, wow. $7,000 going out. Okay. Well, there that goes, you know, but the flow, and then boom, 10,000 in, you know what I mean? It's like, there is a flow. And I feel like that you have to be willing to say no to, like you're saying, like no to these things in my life. And it's so hard. That's what I was talking about recently, about the fear, about the hustle and the, you know, doing it because out of fear, because if I say yes to those things, and there's a thing, and there's a situation that's in my life right now that I said no. And the person kept coming back to me and said, you can say no, it's cool. But like, look, it's this month, it's about this much money and it's the thing. And I was like, yeah, I really think that no. And I talked to Brian and I said, no. And then he came back and said, you know, you sure? You know, and he's really like pushing for it. And I said, well, maybe. And then it's just the whole point of it just felt wrong. It just felt like, I'm just like, what am I doing? And nothing's happened. Nothing's happened with it. But my mind wants to go back and like, oh, I should go check. Like, is it happening? Is it not? Even though I don't want it. Like that's my mind is like trying to hold on to that. And that takes me out of me getting more of the stuff that I do want, you know? So it's like, it's such an interesting, and that just happened a week ago. Like I'm still, you know, I'm still capable of making those choices that aren't going to help me get what I want because of fear. Because I was like, oh, right, I don't want to miss that out. It's like good money, you know, even though it's like, don't want to be doing that, you know? So,
yeah. I'm literally in the middle of a negotiation right now, fighting the exact same battle. So it never goes away, ever, right? Everybody thinks you reach a certain level of success, your life gets easier and you have less problems. Yeah. The current problems you have go away. You just get new problems. It's all the same ones. And I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful. I'm absolutely grateful and I have so much gratitude for what I've accomplished and where I am. But people think that it all just goes away. It's just different problems that are more complex. It's the same thing, right? And I'm sure it's the same thing for you too, where it's just a matter of, yep, I'm much further along than where I was a decade ago, feeling great about it, but there's still a bunch of problems in my way, right? And ultimately, the problem is always up here. It's that voice. It's like, where is that voice coming from that wants to hold on to these old identities, right?
Yeah.
Which is going to take me full circle to going back to the beginning of the story, which you alluded to a little bit. First of all, anybody that either saw you in video form or a picture and you said that I'm 33 years sober, it'd be like, what, did you go sober when you were like 5? Like, dear Lord, how young were you when you were drinking? So you've aged very, very well and taken good care of yourself. But I'm curious, what does it take to, even at that whatever young age it was, and you can tell a little bit more about the story of when you became sober, because I think that's really important for this conversation. There was an identity that you had. And every single day, I'm sure even 33 years later, that identity is not gone and you have to battle it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's so interesting. So I'll share this too, because so I had shared that on social media and the 33 years, and I got a note, a message, a DM from somebody I don't know, doesn't follow me. He had followed a hashtag that I had hashtagged, the sobriety hashtag. And he said, hey, just wanted to say congratulations. I followed the sobriety hashtag, saw your thing, very inspiring. Any advice for somebody that's made some poor choices, but, knows that he needs to get his life together? And it's, I just dove in. Like I must have, you can only write so many things on Instagram, words. I don't know how many words it is, but I had to like keep continuing to write, I had to like send it. I was like, wait, what's going on with my computer? I was like, oh no, it's just, so I sent like, probably 10 of these, and I just basically broke it down to him. I was just saying, for me, knowing what to do is not enough. Like for me, knowing that I'm not supposed to eat that thing, knowing that I shouldn't pick up that drink, knowing that I shouldn't spend that money when I don't have it. All those things, do me no good, just in my head, because my head created the situation that I'm in. Same head is here, the same, doing is can't come up with a solution. And so for me, growing up, I wanted to be perfect. Like my parents got divorced when I was like 9. I became my mom's like little man. I had to take care of my brother and sister. She expected me to be, she always told me like up to that point, like how great I was in everything. Like I was, I was so handsome. I was so smart. I was so, courageous, all these things. And
all of which are correct, by the way.
I didn't believe any of that stuff then. You know what I mean? Because my head was already sort of in this sort of diseased mind and negative thinking about myself because, all the stuff that was sort of going on. And so to take it to another level where then, getting to a place where I was wanting to escape sort of reality. I was wanting to constantly not feel these feelings, and that was always, I was always like a sensitive kid. Like, if somebody got mad at me, I cried. Like a fight became like, I was so emotional. And so I just wanted to just numb that, and that was whether it was like, drinking or video games or, working or, whatever it was, just to work hard as a, to get get on the football team or whatever it was. And so for me, and so I was going to say is like, so because, I had to have this idea of being perfection, I was constantly, shucking and jiving to kind of keep these things going. So no matter how much trouble I got in, I was always able to sort of get my way out of it. I would, I can't tell you how many times I got caught doing something, lied about it, and then came back after it was like clear that there's no way that I'm going to get away with this and say, I'm really sorry. I was scared and I shouldn't have, and I always got away with it. People would go, oh, he's taking responsibility when I totally lied and totally, and so what happened was there were so many of those times where it just wasn't working anymore. And I got basically into a corner and, I was drinking, doing drugs, wrecking cars. And my boss is like, yeah, you need help, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And so like, I'm going to take this week off and, I'm going to, talk to my aunt who's sober. We're going to, I'm going to get sober. And I just like partied for a week. Like it couldn't even, like the best thinking couldn't get me there. And he showed up at, my door a week later and said, you ready to go? And I said, yeah. And I'd been up for like 3 days. And he said, you're a mess. Like you need help. I already talked to your dad. You didn't go talk to your aunt. I talked to your mom. She said that, part of the deal you living here was you didn't drink and you've been drinking. So she's going to kick you out. And my dad already said I can't live with him. And so I was literally like, I have no place to go. And he said, let's get you into rehab. And I didn't think I had a problem. I just knew I didn't have any place else to go. And so I went and I made it 29 days. It was a 30-day program. The 29th day, I went to my friend's house to go to a movie. I used my mom's car. I got there and he had like a beer in front of him. And it was just like, I was like, a little parched. And we just have like just a little sip just to kind of, so I took a drink and, I said, yeah, cool. So we just started talking. The next thing I know, I finished the beer and then we went and got a 6-pack out of his refrigerator from his dad. And then we went to this party. And the next thing I know, I was selling my watch for a line of cocaine at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, wait a second, I came for one drink. That's all I was going to do. And so when I got back to that program the next morning, I copped to it. And, I was a great example to the other people that wanted to go drink the next day at the end of that 30 days of like what not to do. And that was, September 11, 1988, and I'm grateful that I didn't, that the obsession was finally removed, probably 3 or 4 years later. But my journey has been, okay, so I take the alcohol away. Like that was just a symptom of my diseased mind, like I still like all those thoughts, all those feelings were still there, and so I found myself like cutting myself off from relationships. I'd be in a relationship, but as soon as it got too real, I'd be out or I wouldn't commit because I was afraid, and so there was like constant 10-year things where I was like, then I'm in a relationship, like, in therapy, crying every day because like, she's not calling me back after an hour of like, it's like, I didn't know how to have these emotions. And so having this journey of constantly, peeling away the onions, just as you were saying, the why in what we do for our, sort of our vision and our career, the why of, why am I doing this? Why is this behavior still happening? Why am I still having this addiction to these negative thoughts? And a lot of it is now just being able to just break it down and just go like, I mean, it's sort of going back to the secrets. Like, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's just, I just go like, if I look at all those things and go right now in this moment, little Eckhart Tolle, power of now, like in the moment right now, I'm great. I have no problems. I can't control any of the stuff I've already done. And I definitely can't control anything beyond the next, now. I'm fine. It's only when I'm like trying to control that stuff, trying to, fix things that I've done in the past and make up for that. And that stuff is when I start to get like, I sort of open this door to all that negative thinking to just jump in there. And I just like, I find it and just go, yeah, that's not real. That's not real. It's not real. Okay. So what am I supposed to be doing today? Right. Let me go do that. I hear you. Thank you, voices. Thank you. Yeah, I know I'm a piece of shit. I know. Thank you for telling me. I know I should have combed my hair. I know I should have not had that extra cheesecake. Thank you. And just go and say, I know this is a horrible sentence. I'm just going to write it anyway, and that's just that one thing next to, the next step, and just chipping away, as you said earlier.
Well, and as you know, having gone through the program, going through my program specifically, because we're now talking about multiple programs, but having gone through the Focus Yourself program, one of the very first key mindsets that I teach my students, and is one that I have to internalize every day, because they say that people teach what they need to hear the most, which is one of the reasons I'm a coach, and I'm sure you are too.
Right.
Don't pursue perfect at the expense of good enough.
Yes.
My bar for good enough is still way higher than most people's, but it's low compared to what my expectation is. And I've had to learn how to find that fine line because, as you said, your perfectionism literally drove you to drink.
Yeah.
Right. It was that fear of I'm not going to meet other people's expectations or meet my own. Therefore, I need something to numb the pain and the fear and the overwhelm. Right.
Absolutely.
But the drinking was just a symptom. There was a much deeper underlying issue. And it's that fear that, again, I think just drives us to make the decisions that aren't in alignment with why we're really doing what it is that we're doing.
And I heard and this, I don't know if I can believe it yet, but I heard perfection's not possible. But I mean, I'm holding out that it is. No.
I intend to prove people otherwise.
Yeah.
That's my pursuit. I mean, the name of the program is Optimize Yourself, right? It's as close as I can get to perfect yourself, right? But at the end of the day, what I've had to learn is that it's all about how can I look at my choices? Like you said, it's all about now, right?
Right.
And there's a saying that I've learned throughout this ninja journey. And what we do when we get, you can just see on somebody's face when they're ready to like climb a 20-foot rope or swing over, like all this crazy that terrifies me. I couldn't have picked something that was scarier for my level of skill and I hate heights and water. And it's like, why did I choose this? But again, it's about embracing the fear. But we have a saying that we tell each other when we can see that look in somebody's eyes. We ask them, hey, where are you? And they say, here. What time is it? It's now. And you can just see like, okay, this is all I have to worry about. I just got to grab this bar and I got to swing to the next one. And my hand needs to grab this chain. And then the left hand needs to grab this doorknob. And then that's it. Right. But it's really, really hard to do that when you're so wrapped up in where is it that I'm supposed to be right now? Where am I supposed to be in a year? Everybody tells me I should be this one thing. Don't be a jack of all trades. Like just the voices never flippin' end ever.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So let me ask you this question. What haven't I asked you yet? What is it that we really need to talk about, that we're here, we need to share our experiences, we're going deep? What is the question I have not asked you yet?
That is a great question.
And it takes all the responsibility off of me. It's a genius question for a podcaster. You can steal it.
Yeah, I'm going to steal it. Well, you haven't asked me yet, but I know that you definitely talk about it. But I would say, how do I balance this pursuit of my career and being a husband and a father and a son? How do I balance that all? And so then I'll take that opportunity to answer that.
So Mark, talk to me about how do you balance it all between the career and being a husband and a son and a father? How do you balance it all?
I don't know. I mean, that's just a gift. No, I mean, well, it's funny because it stands out to me because so I told you this journey about the 2019, and that sort of led to me doing a couple Audible projects, directing 2 movies, directing TV promos and commercials. It was just like this insane sort of, almost 15-month period leading it, or I guess it was almost 18 months, leading us right back into, March 12th, 2020, lockdown happened. And so all of last year, having my son here, no daycare, and seeing that the industry, slowing down, if not shutting down completely at times, to see how much I was unwilling to be present in my life, how much under the making happen hustle, the Mark Gantt hustle, under that sort of hat of that. What that did was it allowed me to not be present. It allowed me to like disconnect and not feel, feelings, not feel, not just to accept that I'm okay just as I am. And so, there's like this numerology stuff, like I'm a number 3, which is like achiever. And that's my thing. So here I am, August of last year of 2020, and literally, I can't achieve at anything because there's nothing happening. Nothing is happening. The movie that I did is coming out, in September, but there's not and I was realizing, oh, wow, I am obsessed with my achievement will provide my self-worth. And so that was the big thing. So how does this have to do with balance? Because now I'm seeing that I needed to have, the only way that I can see my true worth is to be present and be able to see what I'm actually bringing to the world, not what the world is bringing to me. And so that was the shift. And being able to, I mean, the phone is just like, it was like, this, the amount of time I was like on my phone, on my computer, like I can just, so many like arguments with my wife, and she's like, you're not even listening to me. And I'm like, yeah, babe, I just trying to finish this email. Like that email was the most important effing email in the world. No, and my son wanting to get my attention is like, well, I'm just trying to finish up this thing. That thing, like, it's just, there was nothing, you know what I mean? There's nothing that can't be done in 10 minutes to stop and have a conversation and listen. And so it was painful. Another like breakdown, like we had some breakdowns, all three of us, of being able to just go, oh, wow. None of us are patient. None of us want to just stop and listen. None of us are willing to just be okay without getting the ice cream, without getting the thing I want right now, without getting the, all those things. And so finding that balance of like, my career is my career. It's over here, So now how do I fix that? I get up at 4:00 every morning and I'm like getting my time in before 7:30 so that I've got that time, my work, my writing, anything that's like super important before my son gets up. And now I'm with him from 7:30 till 9 till I take him to school, or 8:30 now. That's, I'm there. We're getting everything ready. We're spending time together. There's not, dad's on the computer, dad's on the phone. Obviously there's a work thing that's a specific thing. There's obviously that, but we work at that. We make that work, and finding that balance. And that's been, I can see the difference. I mean, my wife and I are connecting on a completely different level, and he and my wife are, connecting on a totally different level where we're being able to just say, because of that, then you can say, okay, I need 10 minutes because I need to do this thing. I need 20 minutes to do this. Dad's going to be in here working for an hour. When I get done, mom's on a podcast, mom's doing an interview, and you know what I mean? But when we're done, we're done. We're not like checking the phone. We're not doing the thing. We're not talking to, it's just like, we're there, and he's involved with our chores and he's doing all the stuff with us. And it's not like, oh, we got to like entertain him. But it's like the fun of being in the moment instead of us trying to like hustle. And so that's been the big thing for me, is to really see that, I want to make it happen, but it can't be at the cost of the people around me or be me. Like it can't be, it's not me. What I achieved is not me. And my acting teacher when we used to have cassette tapes, we used to record the critiques. And so he'd pull these two tapes up and say, so this is Mark. Mark's just did this great scene. People love him, or he's just did this movie. They just can't, it's like, look, he's amazing. Right? This is the character that he's in this thing. And then he pulls up this other cassette tape. He goes, and this is Mark, the actor, who's sitting in class today. He thinks he's this guy that's in the, the movie. And this thing is like, no, that's outside. That's just outside stuff. It's like, they look very similar. It's very easy to deceive yourself and go like, oh, I'm that success or I'm that failure, And so to be able to just take it back to saying, that tape cassette, that this who I am, I have to be okay if my directing writing career goes anywhere. And that's sort of where I'm at. That's what it's sort of like when we first talked, I said, I'm in this weird place right now. Cause I feel like I've done all that vision work. I've done all that. Like, it's clear that there's all these things that I want to be doing. I know that I want to be of service to people. I want to inspire people, and I'm on a ride. Like, the universe and I are all connected. You and I are like, the fact that it's like, taking this much time for us to get together and be on a podcast together. No mistake. It's like, yeah, this is when it's supposed to be happening. 10 years ago, not that important. 5 years ago, could have been cool. But now, like, the journey that I'm on to be able to connect with you like this, I'm looking at you right now, like connect with you on this level. It's amazing. Because I feel like this ride at Disneyland, there's like, oh, it's scary. And it's like, oh no, I'm like trying to turn the wheel. And it's like, oh wait, there's a ride. What do you want me to do? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to have fun in this moment. The door opens up. It's like, oh, water, we got sprayed. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I got scared or whatever. So that's where I'm at right now, is like in trying to enjoy this ride, seeing that I'm connected to everything and that I don't have to hold on so tight and try to control and manipulate every situation on a good day. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, on a good day. We all have the voices that are trying to do otherwise. But using that ride analogy, like you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, we're going to go into this pit or whatever, and you're trying to turn it. And then I realize in my mind, oh, wait, this thing's on tracks. It's going to go in the direction that it's going to go. And this wheel, this is just a prop for the little kids to think they have some level of control. But ultimately, this ride is going to go in a specific direction. And I kind of need to be patient and sit here, even if it's dark right now, knowing that the doors are going to open. God, that's the hardest part. Like, would the person just call me back today so I know I can have control of my life again? Like, would you just give me an answer, or would just, come on, make it easy for me, right? Like, I don't want to have to be in the dark.
Yeah. And it's funny is like, even when that does happen, like, right. Like I'm waiting for the call and I get the call like, oh, oh, okay. Like it did, you know what I mean? Even then it's like, even like you would say, like you get the job. Now it's like, oh, now I got to negotiate the deal. Now I got, okay, let me get thinking. There's like, oh wait, now I got to do the job. Now there's like, oh, they have the pressures. They want me to be doing that. You know what I mean? I can always find something to kind of say. And it's really difficult to really just be able to say, it's okay that like, I want them to call. I want them, and, I've actually had this like say, recently, this is very recently too, where I'm just like, I'm not going to text that person. I'm not going to send them an email because everything in me feels like I need to. They need me to, remind them that I'm out here and this thing needs to happen. And in order for it to happen, it needs to have I actually don't. I actually don't, again, I'm not talking about a specific thing, where work related there's a deadline, like you going, well, I'm not going to call the showrunner to say, I didn't get any of the stuff that the notes and this needs to be turned in 2 hours. Like, yeah, you follow that. But if it's something else where it's just like, that it's not, it's you wanting to control the situation, like you want to get the feedback so that you can sort of, am I on the right track here? It's like, let me just keep going until they come in and say, okay, we're ready to take a look at it, whatever,
Yeah. And the other thing that this reminds me of too, and maybe it's a tangent, maybe it's not. Well, I promise we'll wrap up soon because I'm a big fan of time management. We've got a few more minutes. But what this made me think of as well, and I think that both our stories are really representative of this. We have this expectation that this one thing is going to change everything, right? It's the one phone call, the one deal, and we think that we're going to put in all this work, and then all of a sudden we're going to make it big. And what you realize is just these little tiny changes, these emails and these offers and these jobs over and over and over. And I was thinking about that recently. And the problem is that if you ever have a big win, you always want to chase the next big win. And I know that you and I have at least had one big win in our careers. So it's like, I got to make that happen again. I don't know what yours is. I'm going to tell my story very quickly because you were a big part of it. But I will never forget the day. And it's funny you brought him up because I haven't thought about him for a while. But Alfredo called me. I remember exactly where I was standing. I remember who was around me. And he said, hey, Zack, it's Alfredo over Burn Notice. Just wanted to let you know we're super excited to have you on board. We'd love you to come cut our show. I broke down in tears and I couldn't speak. He's like, hey, you there? You all right? I'm like, yep. It's been a really tough road to get here. Like I couldn't even talk to him. And not once since, with all of the opportunities that I've ever gotten, has there ever been that big of a transformational change where I thought to myself, oh my God, I've made it. I've worked so hard for so many years and it paid off. That was in one phone call. In 60 seconds, my life changed and I knew it would. I keep chasing that phone call and I want it again. And I have to remind myself it's all about tiny incremental progress. And I know you suffer from the exact same affliction.
Yes. Well, I have like, it's so funny. I mean, when you were telling that story and which is why I brought up Alfredo, because I remember the story you told me and, and I know intimately all the journey that it took for what you did, all those, like every one of those steps, to get there and how you did it. And, and so, I think, Bannen was one of the first stepping stones for me where it was like, I realized there was a couple moments in there where, one, I was like, Jesse and I were at Sony at the table before we sold it. And they're like, we were there pitching 32 people, like this massive conference room. And like Jesse and I were at one end with Jesse Albert, our agent, and everybody else sort of like, there's like 2 empty chairs and then like 32 people. And Eric Berger and Michael Stratford and Michael Ross were all three at the end over there. And so we're all talking, and we're all excited. We're pitching it, and then somebody said, so we really love the trailer and the 2 episodes that you guys did, and no offense, but we just want to ask, are you open to have somebody else play Neil Bannon? And before I could answer, from a booming voice from the end of the thing, Michael Stratford slammed his hand down on the table and said, "There's nobody else that can play that part. That part, Neil Bannon, is that guy right there." And there was a moment of just I'm getting the chills now thinking of it. It was just wow. He saw, we knew we had to create something for him to see it, to be able to believe it. We couldn't just pitch it and it had to be enough. We had to make something to show people that was it. And then that was our thing the whole time, making that. And then the thing is you're directing it, I'm acting it. There's no other option. That's the only way we're going to make this thing happen. And I hear people, still do that today, trying to, focus on that. And it's yeah, but you got to show them. You can't just write a piece of paper and go, here's the thing I want to do. Can I do that? And that moment was such a huge thing for me. I walked out of that room and I was like, holy shit, somebody saw me. Somebody saw the vision that I had. And there was no doubt whatsoever. And that never came up ever again. They were replacing people all around me. We wanted to have different, that the Last Minute DVD cover need to have these different people, but that was something that was just such a huge thing for me. And so, those are those things for me where, for me, what happened is after that was the next thing, well, then I have to sell this as a TV series, and then, that whole process, it just became this, after it wasn't an initial thing happening, then I went to trying to make 50 other shows. Anybody else that basically came to me and said, "Oh, I love the Bannen Way, I want to create this project," I said yes. And I had 25 projects that I didn't care about, because it was just I'm just trying to get the next thing, get the big sell, and so yeah, I think that it's such a big thing. And Brienne, being an actress and director as well, it's we've constantly been saying that, and not just writer. It's just it's so easy for us to just you get the one thing, and it's if you don't just own it and just go this is great, this is great, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's this, it's going to move up to that, money, how many ratings, how many views, how many this, how many call, it doesn't matter. The yardstick is constantly moving. You're constantly moving it. And so, it's such a challenge to be in the process. And I think that's, you with American Ninja, it's you're in the process of it. You know what I mean? There's no, the minute that you get to the certain place, it's yeah, but I didn't, I need to get to the, I need to win, I need to, it's okay, well, you got to a place that most people could never get to, you know what I mean? And so how do we, embrace that as in the journey,
Yeah. And that's been a real struggle for me that I have to constantly remind myself of. If I'll put a video up of me doing, some crazy pull-up swing lache thing or whatever, I've had people that have said, dude, you're an editor, right? When did you become Spider-Man and all this stuff? And my initial reaction is, oh no, but you don't understand, right? That's cool, but there's this other thing that I really suck at right now. And I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Here's an idea. How about instead respond with, thank you. That was really nice of you to say that. And I really struggle with that, because immediately when somebody wants to give a compliment, my immediate response is, yeah, but you don't understand. I still suck at all these other things, right? And that both is really exhausting for yourself, but it's also, kind of insulting to the other person that just wants to really point out what you've done. And that's a hard thing for me to grow into, because again, like you, I'm what I call a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
Right. I'm constantly have to remind myself that I don't always have to be perfect, and it's okay to fail. I just prefer to fail as fast as humanly possible so I can get to the success. Right. But I got to fail over and over and over as fast as I can. But every once in a while, I have to be like, you know what? Thanks. You're right. I couldn't do 2 pull-ups when I started this. And, now I'm banging out 15 as a warm-up. But I forget that. I forget that part. Right. And I think everybody does when they're on that journey. they just keep looking forwards. They forget to look in the rearview mirror or look at the odometer and say, man, I've been on this journey a lot longer than I thought, and I'm doing okay.
Well, and if you don't do that, then you're not enjoying the process. And that's where I get, again, where I feel like you're then not being of service to the project. You're not bringing all your talents and everything to that certain thing, that task that you're doing. If I even in that situation, I'm constantly thinking, all the things that are wrong with it because X, Y, Z, and it's not going to be that great because the thing I want is not happening in the thing and this, but, or as soon as I get it, it's like, oh, but then this is going to fit on, this is my thing. Like if I get this, then it's going to lead to this. Cause if I'm going to get to things, we know, like with the business, it's just trying to like, okay, this is going to move my career to the next level. Like there's a part of me that's like not in that project. There's a part of me that's like, well, it's not as good as that project up there. So, I need that, kind of thing. And then that's like when I'm finished and I've like delivered this thing and the people that wanted it, they're going like, wow, this is fantastic. All I see is the imperfection and how it's not, I've literally done like you and I've like, you have been so gracious. I think you've watched at least one cut of every single project I've done.
I have indeed.
You have. And I say at least once, because I know you've seen several more than 3 or 4 times. And, it's to be able to say, I'm getting better, that I'm, that this process is to the next, I'm doing what I can, and it doesn't have to be, I was gonna say that's what it was. So I was like, I'm in this process, and then I like go watch it like Star Wars, and I'm like, oh, my movie's not like Star Wars. It's never it's never going to be as good as that. You know what I mean? It's like that. Why would I go see Star Wars in the middle of post-production on my movie? That's like the worst thing. That's like that sabotage of like doing that thing, because it's like, oh, it's not that. And that allows me to just, poo-poo on the thing that I'm doing, just because it's just like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that thing. It's like, yeah, but see that speck of dirt. So yeah, I just think that it's, it's such an important thing to be able to enjoy this process as I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's funny because you remind me of a story that I don't know if I've ever told another human being in my life, but hey, we're here, we're recording it, we're on the record. But this reminds me of a story. I so vividly remember this. I don't know the year. I'm sure if I looked it up on IMDb, I would know the year, but I saw 21 grams in the theater. All by myself. So I'm guessing it was mid 2000, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, right? And I was still very much at that part of my career where I had some success as a trailer editor. I'd done like 1 or 2 really low budget indies, but asking the question, am I ever really going to make it? And I started crying watching that movie because I felt so sorry for myself, thinking, I want to be doing this. Why don't I get to work on stuff like this? And I look back at that now and I'm like, you idiot. Like, you were a child. The guy that edited that was an Oscar-winning editor, and you're all upset about the fact that you didn't get to edit 21 grams, because it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's so brilliantly edited.
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah, of course. I think you and I, we did a short together, and I scored it with like all 21 grams. You're like, oh yeah, of course, duh. One of my favorite films, and I just sat there crying, feeling sorry for myself. Why am I not doing this stuff? And when I look back at that now, I'm like, seriously, like, just be patient, and like you said, trust the process. But you got to keep going. That's the key. If you quit, then you failed.
Yes.
Right? So on that note, is there anything else, any final words of wisdom or advice that you want to give? And the person specifically that I want you to give it to is going to require a time machine. You're going to jump in a time machine to September 12th of 1988, and you get to talk to yourself. What advice are you going to give yourself?
I'd say you don't feel like it right now, but you are enough. And that if you keep putting yourself out there, if you keep failing, trying to do what you want to be doing, you'll find that you'll have some peace in your life, that you're actually doing something that's of value to the world. And it may not be, in the moment, you may not feel like that's happening, and you think you want something that's outside of yourself. But if you can acknowledge the small, tiny little wins that you've done, small little things, the little step up, the couple steps up the mountain, then You're going to be okay. And guess what? It's going to be a hell of a ride. And you can either choose to have fun or you can be miserable the whole time. And I'm going to say, I'd go for the fun.
Nailed it. If I gotten in a time machine, I couldn't have given you even half as good advice. So that was pretty awesome. On that note, if you've done your job and I've done my job of inspiring people today, and somebody wants to connect with you because you've inspired them, how can they find you and connect with you?
On social, I'm at Mark Gantt. Everything is at Mark Gantt, and my website is markgantt.com.
That's really complicated.
Yeah, I try to complicate
it really difficult.
Yeah. And that's MARK even, you know what I mean? I don't even mess with it, you know?
Yeah, you don't even mess with the spelling or anything else.
Yeah.
Well, this is an interview that's, I think, 11, 12 years in the making. I'm not sure. And like you said, it needed to happen when it happened. And something tells me that a lot more is going to happen after it as well. And there might have to be a follow-up in the future. But I put this one on my calendar, and I'm like, I'm going to enjoy this one. And I knew I was going to need zero preparation. I did nothing. I was watching television 60 seconds before I clicked the connect button because I knew how good this would be because we didn't need the prep because we've got over a decade's worth of prep. And this was beyond a pleasure. So I cannot thank you enough for your time and everything that you've done to inspire me and just being a good friend and everything else. And, to another 10 to 20 years of us making it happen.
I can't wait, man. Thank you.